Good evening, Razorback fans. Welcome to the one, the only Hog Talk podcast, live from the Amigo Provisions Company studio. We are part of the Believe and Buzz Radio networks, where you can hear us on all podcast platforms, as well as Buzz 2 106.7 in Central Arkansas. So please like, rate, and review our podcast. And all live shows are presented to you by Arkansas Brewing Company in downtown Ozark, Arkansas. I am Porter Hayes. Alongside me is Jacob Davis, and our broadcast is brought to you by Bet Online, which remains your number one source for all sports betting this season. Everything you'll find, the latest odds, team matchups, info, player news, and game trends at Bet Online. The fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite leagues and events. So head on over to Bet Online to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus. And make sure to use our promo code BLEAV to receive your rewards. Bet Online, where the game starts. And we'll start it in broom fashion. Arkansas sweeps Tennessee in 3 games. For someone who says they're elite to not win a series ever at Baum-Walker Stadium and not to win a series since 2005. I think they've pretty much packed their bags and went home, took the L, and I hope they had safe trips back to Knoxville. But, Jacob, I mean, what more could you ask for in this? We knew that they could come in and take 2 out of 3. It was going to be a struggle, but I didn't see a sweep coming. I mean, up until today, of course. But did you see a sweep coming when it comes to Arkansas's win over Tennessee?
So when you look around with this team and the buildup of this team, they're missing Jackson Wiggins, they're missing Brady Tiger, they're missing another pitcher, and you didn't have Jared Wagner out in left field this weekend, so they had to shake things up. But they responded so well. The freshman pitchers responded, and you think about Gage Wood on Saturday night going 3. I mean, he had, I think, 6 strikeouts in his last 7 batters. Like, dude is throwing some heat, and he got out of a jam last night. And then you talk about today and in the sweep where BN Bobby, he comes in and he throws some good. I think he threw about 5 or 6 innings of good ball. And then you close with another freshman pitcher. And then on Friday night, heavens, man, they are opportunistic. They don't do it with just pitching. They don't do it with just hitting. They're still in bases. Like, they are aggressive. And like when you think about this team and this weekend, they wanted this series because it's a big time rivalry now in college baseball. You saw how aggressive, like, this is aggressive Dave Van Horn times 100. Because, yeah, they'll steal bases occasionally, but they were aggressive. I mean, there was a couple of times on Saturday where they had guys stealing multiple bases in one inning. Like, it was just incredible, exceptional hitting, great pitching by the freshmen. And I think Arkansas right now is in a good spot moving forward with the sweep of Tennessee.
Yeah, anytime you get a sweep, I mean, that just puts you, further and further ahead of the pack, and especially when you're trying to chase LSU and just what they're doing this year. I mean, it alleviates that series loss. But, overall, right now Arkansas is 29-7, 11-4 in conference. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, Guru, he was talking about 18-12 overall when it comes to his prediction. You're sitting at 11-4 after playing Tennessee and LSU. Now, you're 24-3 at home, but you're 3 away. I mean, you couldn't ask for anything more But what's the craziest thing that, looking at the scores, I mean, these were 2-3 run games and then 7-2. You would think just by the way this series was manhandled that every game would have been a 5-6 run game. I mean, that's just the vibe that I got. It was 5-2, 6-3, 7-2. And you would have thought that Arkansas won every game in run rule fashion. I mean, that's just the hype that this Tennessee series brings. And I'll tell you what, I was driving home from work on Friday, and I made it a point to drive by the stadium. It was, I want to say it was like 2:30, 3 o'clock. And there was already fans already lined up from the gate all the way to the end of Razorback Road where that four-way stop is. And that was 2:30, 3 o'clock. I mean, these people were camped out, and
they started camping on Wednesday night.
Exactly. And then you got that RV park right across the street where, next to that manufacturing plant, I can't remember what they make there, but, that place was full. It was an atmosphere. And just seeing the crowd and the pictures, with the flags waving after the home runs. I mean, and just Borfin and another home run. It's just when one guy goes down, I mean, another guy. And that was the biggest thing I'll say, and I'll turn it back over to you, was – who's going to be these leaders that step up and really carry this team? And for the first time, you can really say that they have multiple guys that have risen to the occasion. There's not just one true leader, but that's in a good way of saying this team's got a lot of guys that care about this program and want to win just as much. It's not just one guy trying to pick the rest of the team up. I mean, you see freshman Gage Wood. I mean, that kid is on pace to be the freshman of the year in the SEC. I mean, if he's not already – I mean, I know we're still got a ways to go in SEC play, but just what he's done in these past two series and to shut the door on Tennessee and pick up his third save of the season, I mean, that's just amazing. And, again, there's a little pixie dust when an Arkansas kid puts on an Arkansas uniform. Oh, yeah. And that's just all there is to it.
Yeah, and you talk about freshman of the year. I mean, I think he could potentially be closer of the year. You think of another guy that's throwing heat. It's Hunter Holland, the freshman Friday guy. Like, he wasn't even supposed to be in this position. He was probably going to be a Saturday, Sunday type of kid. No, he gets thrusted into the freaking Friday night series, and he's just, I mean, he's throwing 6-7 innings of work, 90-something pitches every week. He'll give up a run every now and then, but I mean, he's having a phenomenal year. I think he's under a 1.0 ERA for the year. Just throwing really good stuff. Dylan Carter, he was the middle reliever in today's game. 4 2/3 innings pitched, three strikeouts. And the guy that I couldn't remember was Christian Fouch. He pitched the final inning, had 1 strikeout, and closed up Tennessee. And man, Arkansas, Dylan Carter, he's been fantastic. He's 6-0 on the year. And then today he pitched a season-long, career-long 4 2/3. So you can't say enough about him. You were talking about guys that like multiple leaders. You think about Peyton Stovall, a guy when you need a hit at times, and then you think about TJ Josenberger, Tavian. You think about Jace Borfin. Like, there's just multiple guys up and down this lineup. You think about Brady Slavens, the guy that's been there. This is his 3rd year. Like, there's so many guys here that have played a lot of ball, whether you're a transfer or whether you've been in the Razorback program for very long. Like, these guys are putting it together at the right time, I think. And you're going to bring back these guys that are injured, kind of like a Brady Tiger and a Jared Wagner that missed this series. And I honestly, I'm thinking, well, outside of LSU and South Carolina, Arkansas they could be the 3rd best team in the SEC. I think there's a log jam.
They're better than South Carolina. I mean, and this throw the whole bias thing away from they're playing hot at the right time.
Yeah.
They got, I want to see them grind throughout, and they've gotten to play some of the, the bottom teams, and Vandy is not what Vandy has been, and I don't ended up what happened with the series between South Carolina and Vanderbilt. I know they picked up game 1, but I don't know how the rest of the series went. But I think that's, Arkansas has South Carolina's number just like they have Tennessee's number. I'm not worried. I mean, now you get them at the end of the year, but I think LSU Tier 1, and then you got Arkansas and possibly South Carolina Tier 2. But I think Arkansas right now, if we're playing how we're playing, Arkansas is the second best team in the SEC by far, because you look at the injury bug that's plagued all sports, and everybody's like, crap, here's another injury, here goes this and that, and it's like you have Wagner get hurt, and you're like, dang it. I mean, 4 to 6 weeks or something like that. So I think that's what they were saying, but they come in, and I think that's the biggest thing with this team is they took that injury and they're like, no, we're going to win for our brother, and they done it in sweeping fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we got Ethan Westerman with us too. I think his segment's coming on now.
Yeah, we're going to bring him on in just a second. What I want to do is say that, you got UCA coming up on Tuesday, and then they travel to Georgia on the 20th, 21st, and 22nd. So,
and Georgia's not they're not necessarily one of the world beater SEC teams either. So it's kind of going to be a little bit of a break, a sigh of relief before you have to go and play Texas A&M, who's been hot this weekend. I think they swept Missouri, and then you go and play Mississippi State, who ended up winning the series against Ole Miss this weekend too. They're a bitter rival.
I think Vanderbilt beat Carolina in the series because Vanderbilt's at the top of the East, 13-2.
Wow.
And Carolina fell 10-4. So you look at the West. You got Arkansas at the top of the West at 11-4 in conference. So Vanderbilt's at the top right now, 13-2. You got Florida. Georgia's at the bottom, 4-11 in the conference. But again, it's the SEC, so you can't go into Georgia next weekend and take them lightly. You got to really be nails, because we've seen what happened. I mean, that just shows you any weekend anybody can fall to the teams in the SEC. But with that, yes, we will bring in Ethan Westerman of WholeHogSports.com, or Hog Sports Network, I should say, the newly formed Hog Sports Network. In our segment, we're going to talk about some spring ball, and I'm trying to get my stupid cursor to come back to the other screen, as I have many problems with that when we're doing the multi-monitor. But there's Ethan. Ethan, how we doing, man?
Doing good. I completed yesterday. They did the Woo Pig weekend up here, and I completed the Triple Crown. Went to spring football, then softball, then baseball. So busy weekend watching, some different sports, but I wouldn't want to have it any other way. Made it out to Bogle again today for the series sweep. So good weekend.
Before we get into the spring game, I mean, you said you got to go to the baseball game. How is that? You're really is that your first experience really covering a baseball game? And what did you think about just the atmosphere and the way that Arkansas played against Tennessee?
Yeah, so since the softball game got put in some weather delays yesterday, I was planning on getting to make it for the whole baseball game, but I got there about, I think it was the middle of the sixth inning. Environment was phenomenal. I mean, I was telling this to Matt Jones, who I was sitting next to up there. He was covering it for the paper that night, but I'd never been to Baum Stadium outside of the hog pen. I'd never even had like a normal seat. So this was my first time to actually sit in a spot in the stadium where I could see everything that was happening and see all the entire crowd and the entire environment. There was a little bit, I think the Saturday crowd was probably the worst of the three, just because there was, it was a little bit colder, and it just seemed like the hog pen was fuller on Friday, Sunday with this being sunny and nice weather. But even then, it was so loud. I leaned over to Matt and I said, I haven't felt, this type of stadium environment since football season. Like, I mean, I went to one men's basketball game, so I take that back. But with all the sports that I've been covering since, I mean, you just don't get that roar like you do in a Baum Stadium whenever you watch the opposing pitcher try and pick off a guy at third base and it go away and run score. I mean, the place went nuts after that because it was just such a big moment in the game. That was kind of whenever I first got there. And so it was a great environment. Definitely. You could tell this was a series that the moment that it was on that schedule, people had it circled, highlighted, Sharpie circled around.
Oh, yeah.
They were going to make this one.
Yeah, they had that. I mean, they were waiting on that before the schedule even come out. I mean, they're like, all right, when do we play Tennessee? I mean, it's become one of those rivalries, and I know we talk about rivalries, but it's funny how you look at the Missouri football rivalry, and we say it's not really a rivalry. I mean, Missouri, has really got the upper hand on Arkansas when it comes to the football side of things. But when you turn around and it's in your favor, you look at the baseball rivalry that Tennessee's come up with. Well, it's kind of flipped. Arkansas has had the upper hand. Tennessee hasn't won a series since 2005. I know with the East-West thing that kind of skews that a little bit, but still, yeah, they've never won a series inside Baum-Walker. I mean, they haven't probably won a series since they played at the fairgrounds over there by Washington Regional. It's been a while since I think 96 was the last year that they've won in Fayetteville, I believe. So,
yeah, and that's the thing. That's the difference. I think this baseball series, that's how a rivalry should be. It was organically formed, like, with the Chippy game at Tennessee that one year with Vitello and Van Horn getting into it, the Kevin Kopps year, and then Tennessee turning around and having a great season last year, the year after. I mean, it's one of those rivalries that's been, you don't have to add any extra fuel on it. It already packs a lot of punch. And it's funny how much Arkansas has dominated in the series. It's, similar to the way that, I mean, the Missouri-Arkansas football series, let's just admit it, it feels very, very forced, but they keep on beating Arkansas where it's like, at some point, you can't say it's not a rivalry. We're getting by the team.
Right.
You got to hate them. I mean, you hate them just as much as they hate you, and I think that's where that stems from.
Yeah, well, all that to say, the crazy environment there. I mean, and I think originally, whenever the SEC baseball schedule came out, they actually didn't have Arkansas, Tennessee.
That's right.
It. I think there was some mistake or something, and people were losing their mind because it's just been building up so much over the past 2 years of we want to play each other, the fan bases, and then I think it's like a day or so later, maybe even the same day, SEC turns out, I was like, hey, we had an error, basically.
They made a mistake. That's right.
This is in the schedule. And so you knew from that moment, whenever you saw how angry people were that it wasn't on the schedule, you knew as soon as it got on there. And the fact that it was coming to Fayetteville, that there'd be some pretty big crowds. Way bigger stadium in Fayetteville than in Tennessee. So I think that, it was a perfect situation for packing a big stadium for a big matchup. And then, of course, Arkansas took care of business. And so you have the whole deal. We're all off season. I mean, it's still going to be a rivalry, and the Arkansas fans will have the upper edge until Tennessee proves they can beat them in a series.
And I think that's another thing. Dave Van Horn, and Tony Vitello. Tony wants to beat Dave so bad. Like, you were talking about that pick play where he overthrew third base. Like, you could see, like, Tony Vitello thinking, man, if I don't figure something out right now, we're going to lose this series. And I mean, that really ended up biting them in the rear. And that ended up being the deciding factor in the series, because after that, it was total onslaught Arkansas from, I guess, the fifth inning on of the game 2 on through today. Like, it was all Arkansas the rest of the way.
Yeah, no, I actually got the opportunity after the game yesterday because just helping out with whatever, I interviewed Vitello. And one of the questions asked to him was about that pick play. And this was his quote. He said, when it's not going well, you can't just sit still. So that was his entire thing. He was like, we're going to be aggressive. We can't just can't get it handed to us and not be trying to make some plays happen. But I mean, that one bit him in the rear because that ended up being such a big momentum shift that inning.
Yeah. I think it was the fact that it was almost like a double pick or a fake pick to first. And then when he spun around to third, he didn't, and you got to be really set when you're throwing it on a dime. And, all it takes is for you got to think we're doing this on a mound. We're not doing this on flat surface like you're throwing, doing a fake screen to a wide receiver and then you switch to the left-hand side of the field and throw the ball. You're doing this on a pitching mound. So, all those things. But again, we've seen where it's just not went Arkansas's way and everything just kind of fell apart. And I think that's what happened with them. And I'm not complaining because I couldn't see it happening to a better team than Tennessee to sit there and get swept. I mean, it used to be the LSU-Arkansas series in baseball, but now it's shifted. Like, I don't want to beat anybody worse than Tennessee when it comes to baseball because, at least LSU's earned their stripes. They've earned their national championship. They have a right to say that they're above Arkansas when it comes to programs. But here comes Tennessee not beating you in 20 years or 10 years. And you're sitting there saying you're better program. I mean, it's almost like, all right, humble yourself a little. And that's probably why they haven't won anything. You got to be able to be humble to be able to win something.
Yeah, and I think that last year, the way that they I know they made everybody mad last year, the way that they just celebrated anything that ever went right for them, scoring runs and stuff. Or it's like, I mean, it all comes full circle. You do that in a year where you're doing well and then you get beaten. Was it their own regional they got beat? It's like you can't expect whenever you start hitting the road the next year against these teams, if you're not winning games, that they aren't going to make sure you aren't winning games.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of Kentucky when they had in basketball, when they had all these high hopes and then they end up getting beat by Robert Morris or something in the NIT or something. I mean, it was something crazy where they were supposed to be like the number 1 or top 10 team. And, you have all this all this arrogance, and then you go to the postseason, you're in the NIT and get beat by Robert Morris. So it's crazier things have happened. But we'll switch it over to the spring game. I know it's spring game format and it's for the fans and really getting some reps. But what was some of your takeaways from the spring game? So some positives, some minuses, and some things they could possibly need, what you think they need to work on moving forward to summer camp.
Yeah, spring games are so hard because you want to see people dominate, but if you see one side dominating, if the offense is just dominating, you're like, oh man, the defense has a ton of work to make up. So I think it's been a positive that the feedback from the past 3 times they've really kind of scrimmaged like this is that it's kind of taken turns of who did better offense, defense. But like on Saturday, I think that both units had plenty of good plays. I think the defensive line looked pretty good. They were it's kind of reminiscent to last year. It felt like almost boom or bust, where they're either getting a sack, which I mean it was just a tap because spring ball, but or big completions down the field. But I mean that's all things. It's once they start going full speed and actually hitting a little bit more, I think that you'll get a better idea. But I think that both sides have taken turns, like I said, of having their moments where the offense looks better, the defense looks better, which I think that's kind of what you want at this time, because if one side is just looking a lot more behind the other one, you have questions. But I do think that one of the biggest takeaways was definitely Isaiah Satanga. He just looks so much more confident than, I mean, we can't even say he looks more confident than he did last year because we didn't even see the guy much last year other than I think the bowl game. But he was a playmaker on Saturday. He looked like how he did in the 7A West, tearing through that conference. He just so fast. And that's the thing about him. He can create so much separation simply just by planting a foot and burst of speed. He's just that fast. And so that was encouraging to see. There were several really good passes to him. Cade Fortin hit him on one corner of the end zone. It was his second touchdown catch of the day that it was perfectly placed. I mean, and he toe tapped it in. So that was an encouraging thing to see. I think some other things you like to see from that game, probably the receiver group in general. It's so different from what it was last year. You aren't looking at the same. This is just new faces, and I think that every single one of them had some good plays. Luke has out of the tight ends position. He had a nice game. Some other guys, Washington, the tight end, he had some catches. I think that right now the offense is looking, if I was going to say which one maybe looks a step ahead of the other, I'd say the offense is really progressing nicely under Enos. It just seems like everybody's kind of buying into the whole system. KJ's taking more snaps, under center. And I think he said on the broadcast of the game that he's starting to like that more than shotgun almost. He said that it's nice being able to audible too. It's something that's getting him ready for the next level. So all in all, I think, you're encouraged overall by the way that practices have gone. The team definitely, I think Sam said before the game, I'm going to butcher his quote, probably, it was something like practices probably could have gone better, but I'm not sure how much. Whenever you got your coach saying that, that's a good thing. Because he's leaving room for improvement, but he's saying that it's hard to find spots right now where he's not just pleased with how things are going. I think people are really bought in. Another note from the spring game that stood out to me, Cam Little made a 58-yard field goal. And
I've seen that. Boomed it.
I mean, it would have made it from another 3 or 4 yards, maybe more out. So that was good to see. Maybe Torian Carter being back out there, that was good to see. I know he had a sack. I get so hard calling these sacks for me because, just touched the guy. But, seeing some faces like that out there making plays. Yeah. Overall, I think that I was I don't know how well they promoted the game in general, but the stadium turnout was not very good in general with attendance, but I don't know. Maybe it's because people were down at Baum Walker.
Yeah. We had so much going on, and that was a thing. Like, I don't know if this is what's weird is, the Tennessee series, and maybe they were making some big weekend out of it where everybody can go be everywhere. And let's face it, the spring game is what it is. So maybe it's a good thing, they did have it. But I was kind of surprised because I thought there'd be more of a turnout because, they're trying to look and see what they're going to do. But then again, it's spring game. You're not going to see what Enos is wanting to do. They're not going to put anything on, especially now with these things being televised. You're going to get way less than what you thought you would see because these things are on TV now. And, you've seen KJ over there doing some commentary during the game. So I like what they were doing. I don't have any complaints about it other than I just thought more people would go. But I get why when you have the biggest series and people are camped out, and apparently there were some things going on in the hog pen, with some, I don't know, all that Twitter mess was going on, but it's just crazy you think how the tide shifted with this program until they start winning 8-9 games on a regular basis, where there would have been 5,000 people at this baseball series, and there would have been 30 to 40,000 at the spring game. Now there's 10, 11,000 at the baseball stadium, and I don't know if they cracked 10,000 at the daggum spring game.
If they did, I would be shocked. It just didn't look very well attended, but I get it. It's like you said, they don't do a big spring game like how it's a glorified big practice the way they do it. They had, I think, 120 or so plays that they did. So it was way more live situation than they do most practices, but it's not like they were promoting it as the red-white game. I think they called it the spring football showcase or something. They weren't, I don't think the goal was to make it some big game where you're going to have somebody getting injured because you're going too hard. But I think that all in all, it served a good purpose. I think Sam said that after the game, something along the lines of it was good for us, and there's a lot of things we can learn from this. Seeing that he did a lot of different situational things. So there was a period where it was like the defense has to get the ball back, offense trying to get the first down and bleed out the clock. Just situational things. Another note that I'll make of it, this is my first year really covering the team, being there and seeing it firsthand, but the general consensus I hear is that the quarterback room right now looks a lot better than it has, in other years. Of course you have KJ coming back, who's solidified himself as top 3 quarterback in the league coming back. I don't know. You look at the SEC West, who else you're saying? Maybe Jaden Daniels at LSU, but he's one of the established quarterbacks coming back in the league. And then you have Jacoby Criswell coming in, who he's played behind some just really good guys at North Carolina. But he's got an arm. There was one play that at this showcase that he was called down because they touched him or something, but he threw a missile down the field to Mbake.
65 yards.
It was a beautiful pass. You really saw his arm on that play. So
he stepped up. So basically there was 2 guys coming in to pressure him. He stepped up, and I guess he got touched and just launched it. It was over everybody, and it went straight into Bake's hands. It was an incredible throw.
Fantastic.
And that's something that I don't think many other teams around the country have in a backup quarterback.
Well, when is honestly, I know, Tyler Wilson could sling it. Austin Allen could sling it. But, other than Ryan Mallett, really, I can go back that far. Somebody can just chunk the ball that far on a dime. I think that's going to be a huge deal when it comes to you're looking for that dual threat. Somebody can really zip it downfield. And, again, you're looking at an offensive coordinator who wants to be there, and they're already looking for another job. That's going to be the biggest thing, of really seeing how much KJ really progresses when you got a guy that believes in the team, believes in the system, and who really wants to be there instead of wanting to jump to Miami or Mississippi State or, now TCU. I mean, that's huge when you've got a boss, your OC, that's wanting to be there mentally just as much as he is there wanting to, be there for Sam Pittman. That's going to be a big difference when it comes to running this offense this year.
And even going beyond the first two quarterbacks, I mean, with Jefferson and Criswell, I am a huge Malachi Singleton fan. I think that in the spring showcase, he had a lot of ball security problems. I think he dropped like 2 or 3, but I think that was just jitters. This is a guy who left high school early to come be up here, and it's a game that's on TV. I think that he just had a little jitters with some of those mistakes. And he rightfully so. I mean, I think he got an earful coming out because, it is a spring game where you're just, you're not going to get hit. So, but aside from those little jitter mistakes, which, those are just overthinking it in a spring game. But whenever he was just playing loose and playing free, I really liked what I saw from him. And I've liked it all spring. I think he has one of the best deep balls on the team. And I got to talk to his high school head coach. I wish I could remember his name right now. I'm going to kick myself for that. But got to talk to him month or so ago out in Savannah, Georgia. Definitely Georgia. I think it's Savannah. But
you're right.
He was teammates with Sam Mbake actually in high school. Fun fact. But his coach, just the amount of praise he had for Malachi Singleton was, I talked to all the recruits head coaches because I was writing a little for Hogs Illustrated magazine, little just bios on each of the signees. And there was just something different talking about him, just how much he enjoyed talking about Malachi beyond the player that he is. He was saying that this is a guy that anytime he was stepped on the field for him, he felt like he had a chance to win because just the way that he has an ability to pick up a team around him. And I've liked what I've seen. He seems like a really mature guy. Then that's what you want to see from a freshman, a guy who steps in and is already pretty mature. So I think he'll have some moments down the road. Just looking forward to seeing how he progresses. And then in Cade Fortin, I was kind of just throughout some of these practices, I wasn't as impressed with some of his accuracy on some things, but then he comes out in the spring game. And whenever people are watching, that's all that I guess really matters. He looked pretty dang good in the spring game. So I think the quarterback room, you have a lot of positives from right now. Definitely looking forward to seeing how that all plays out. I think, though, this is one of the first times in a while you have a pretty clear 1 and 2.
And that's good. With how everything unfolded last year, even it doesn't matter what it was. If you can come out of the spring game with a lot of positives, but yet there's stuff needs to be worked on, and that there's progression, I think that's a comforting knowing that, especially with all the fans that were at the baseball game, knowing when they come back and watch, the reports and hear and read the articles that, moving forward, coming to summer camp, that there's a lot of good things, and we ain't even touched on the running back rate. And that's what we can keep on continuing touching on, and more you get to watch practice and stuff. But again, Ethan, man, it was a good segment. Thank you again for coming on. Looking forward to catching you next week and catching some more baseball and football action.
Yeah, you said the Tennessee softball series. That's when you'll be at?
Yes, I'm going to be there for the Tennessee series.
Big one.
Yep. I'm looking forward to it. I need to get back to Bogle Park really, really soon. Job's been crazy, keeping me away from there.
And I got you a mini Bud Walton that I've been holding on to for a while now. So
take that.
Yeah, I got that.
My wife made me clean up and declutter my mess behind me, so I've got a spot for it.
I about to say I see some good spots for it. It's not that big, so it'll slide in there nicely.
That's right. Well, Ethan, I appreciate you, man. We'll catch you next week.
You bet. Talk to y'all later.
See you, buddy.
Well, that will do it for that segment. After the break, we're going to talk, recap our conversation with Ethan, and then we'll touch on some spring football and some basketball recruiting portal news, and we'll catch you after the break.
At Fordham Lee Distillery, our bourbons look as amazing as they taste. A delicious, high rye bourbon aged over 6 years. Fordham Lee is a company founded on the principles of great folks and spirits worth remembering. Look for Fordham Lee brands at Walk-Ons, Liquor World, Buster's, and soon everywhere in Northwest Arkansas that serves fine spirits. Fordham Lee Bourbon says please drink responsibly. 21 means 21. Fordham Lee Distillery, blended and bottled in Middletown, Maryland.
Shelby Taylor Trucking serves all your timberland needs in South Central Arkansas. With over 50 years in the industry, Shelby Taylor Trucking has established themselves as trustworthy leaders in the industry. From planting to harvesting to hauling your timber, Shelby Taylor Trucking is ready to serve you. Follow them on all social media platforms at Shelby Taylor Trucking. Learn more by visiting their website at staylortrucking.com. That's staylortrucking.com.
McCoy Tiger Drug Store of Sheridan, Arkansas has been the top pharmacy in all of South Central Arkansas since 1895. They were also the 2020 Good Neighbor Pharmacy of the Year. They not only fix you up with your prescription with timely and friendly service, but also an elite gift shop. All your OTC needs, baby and wedding registries, tuxedo rentals, and much more. They're located at 821 North Rock Street in Sheridan. Give them a call today at 870-942-5121.
And welcome back to the Hog Talk podcast. Mentioned our friends over at Arkansas Brewing Company down at 201 South 1st Street in Ozark, Arkansas. They have all kinds of drinks, dinner specials, lunch specials, open from Wednesday to Sunday, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday. That they're always having some kind of karaoke night, bands playing. So go down and see Chris and Destiny Brockett at 201 South 1st Street in Ozark, Arkansas, or call down there for your order, 667-2739. And now a word from our friends at Amigo Provisions Company.
Man, if you like fishing gear, hunting gear, whatever, head over to Amigos Provisions Company and get their camo Razorback Frio button-down shirt. It's amazing. Feels great. It's kind of like one of those great fishing shirts. You're going to look good. You're going to feel good. Everybody's going to want to know where you get it from. So just head over to amigoprovisions.com and pick up a shirt or a hat. They're pretty sweet. They have accented Razorbacks in the state of Arkansas on them. They're pretty cool. Check them out, amigoprovisions.com.
And give a special shout out to our newest sponsor, Metters Lumber Company, and with locations in Alma, Ozark, and Clarksville for all your true value hardware store needs. Stop into any one of the three locations Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And again, that's Metters Lumber Company in Clarksville, Ozark, and Alma. Jacob, man, that was a really good conversation with Ethan. I mean, being able to touch on baseball in the spring game, and it's, again, what I was talking about before the break was how the tides kind of shifted. We knew Arkansas baseball was one of the top programs there, but when you're talking about the popularity, and Arkansas always hangs on to being that football school, and this is something I'm going to kind of bring up, tomorrow is the tide shifting to where we can kind of jokingly say, all right, this is a baseball school, but with this happen, I know that it was Tennessee, but to have the turnout that they did at the spring game, can we kind of say that, is this a baseball school?
Well, I hate to break it to you. I think it's also a basketball school too. I really do. I think Arkansas is in a spot where it's a weird spot because all three teams are competitive. Two of them are national title contenders, and then baseball is just there every single year. And so I really think that baseball was gaining the attention because they had such a huge series there this weekend. And I think, you had the softball series there with UAB in town. And so there was just a lot of options there. And, right now with football in question, you go 7-6, so you're not feeling as good. I think if Arkansas was coming off a 9 or 10 win season, like we thought they would last year, at this time, I think maybe there would be maybe 20 or 30,000 fans there. You look around the SEC and you see the 51,000 at South Carolina. So they say you see the 50 or 60,000 there at Georgia, and you see it around the country. I mean, Auburn, they didn't have a very good turnout last week too. Obviously, it was raining that weekend, but yeah, maybe there's some interest there just because the Tennessee series was so huge. I think that might have taken away some of the attention from the football team. But I agree with what you're saying. Like, the more and more success comes with these spring sports, the less attention it's going to lead away from the spring game.
Yeah, and Wilson brings up a good point. Says in 5 years we'll be looked at as a basketball school. No doubt Muss will win one. So, I mean, that all comes down to it. I know it's harder to win a football because when you're in where you're at with the SEC and stuff and where the program's at. But I think that's what's going to be the tiebreaker. If we're talking about basketball or baseball, is there going to be a race between who wins the first national championship between Muss or Dave Van Horn?
Right.
But I'm saying right now, with the longevity that Dave Van Horn's done, I mean, getting to the College World Series, being that one play away from that national championship, and just seeing the turnout that they have for a home series. I mean, you're having weekend series. I had seen somebody was talking about, and this was the most hilarious thing. Now we can kind of brag about it because we beat Tennessee. There was a Tennessee fan bragging about selling out the stadium. And I'm like, we have more people at an Army Week game than you have at what your so-called sellout stadium. The record-breaking crowd was 5,000.
Yeah.
I mean, we do that at Bogle Park. Seriously. I mean, that's the thing. It's like you're bragging about a stadium that seats 5,000, and we're like, well, that's cute, And I noticed that, Mississippi State, they broke the program record, but it all depends on the capacity. I'm sure if Arkansas wouldn't have built that nice facility for the players and the staff and put more seats there, they would have broke the capacity record. I mean, because I guarantee if you would make it to where there's 20,000 people that could get inside that stadium, they would fit 20,000 people. If there's people waiting outside the door at 3:30 in the afternoon and they're waiting 4 or 5 hours before first pitch. And I loved the Hogs Plus where they were talking about Tavian was driving by and they got to see the line. I think that means a lot to the players more than anybody because they see that the fans are there. They get to pull up hours before the game starts and they're like, all right, this is a big deal. And I think it pumps everybody up.
Yeah, especially because, I mean, he comes from Kansas. Like Kansas baseball. I mean, it's just like Kansas football. Nobody really cares about you. And so it means something to those players. It means something to the guys like the Jared Wagners that played at Creighton or Brady Slavens that played JUCO ball before he came up. You think about the Peyton Stovall who said no to the MLB money and came to school to play for Dave Van Horn. Like, it means something to these kids. Like it just means more, like saying like SEC wise, like it's special. And you talk about Wilson's comment here, in 5 years will be looked at as a basketball school. Arkansas was a basketball school before the 90s came around. Before Houston Nutt took over as head coach, Arkansas was a football school. And then as Matt Jones came to campus, and the Darren McFaddens, the Ryan Mounts, Kobe Hamiltons, Jarius Wrights, Joe Adams, like Arkansas became that football school because football and baseball were competing. Basketball stunk because they had John Pelfrey and in the beginning eras of Mike Anderson. And things seemed crazy because like all three programs were pretty good. And then, Bobby fell off his bike and Razorback football was in the ditch. I mean, and they were terrible. And then basketball and baseball started to rise up a little bit. Basketball was gaining traction with Mike Anderson, was put on a pretty good foundation there as far as basketball. And guess what? Just like you said, Dave Van Horn's longevity at Arkansas, and he just kept on going. 7 College World Series in that span between 2001 when Houston Nutt came in 98, and since Norm DeBryan retired and Dave Van Horn became the head coach there, like his longevity, he just keeps on bringing Arkansas up. He keeps on bringing Arkansas up. They are bringing in top recruiting classes every year, top transfer classes every year, and that's what's making Arkansas in baseball and basketball respectively better, and making this school more of a basketball and baseball driven is because of the success. But the moment Sam Pittman starts winning those 10 games And you're already seeing it in the recruiting. We had the number 3 recruit in the country here this weekend. And Richard Davenport with a story about saying that he was really interested. He was looking at Arkansas a lot harder than he was before, because he's seeing these things, and we're seeing like Arkansas compete in recruiting with Ohio State, with Texas, with Oklahoma, with Clemson, and all these other schools now in football. And you just have the sense that maybe everything's going to be okay, and there may be a 3-program school. I don't know, but right now baseball does lead, and basketball's just a little bit shortly behind them.
And the reason why I bring that up was because even in the dark years of the football program and the height of the baseball program, people still hung on to football season. They're like, man, football, we can't wait to see, is this the year we turn things around? And we're next year. And then even through the Chad Morris years, in between the year of transition between year 1 and year 2, you still seen how football was still the top priority when it comes, and it still might be there. I mean, football still might be the top priority. I know it is, of course, when it comes to revenue. I mean, there's no touching it when it comes to the revenue, but I'm talking about the importance to the fans. I know it's hard to gauge it off of a spring game attendance, and I know it's not really fair to the football program to say, is this a baseball school when we're comparing the Tennessee series to a spring game? I mean, I don't think it's fair, but it piqued my interest, because I was like, even in the down years, people would still turn out. People would still talk about it, but we're talking about the baseball team right now. And that just, like I said, I'll get the fans' reaction tomorrow morning. That'll be our question of the day presented by Hillbilly Really. But I mean, it's really intriguing to me to see really what the fans think. And I know I might be totally wrong. And again, it might be unfair to the football program, but still yet to me, it's an intriguing question. I'm anxious to see, what the fans speak on.
I think Razorback sports is better when football is good.
Oh yeah.
And when I think you saw the transition from Chad Morris to Sam Pittman, and you're thinking, oh, we won 3 SEC games in year 1 under Sam. Then we won 4 and won 9 total in a New Year's bowl game. And then you saw the trajectory going up. I think football became more important. I think it started to become king again, and they kind of backslid this year a little bit. But Arkansas, and I was really impressed. I wanted to ask Ethan, and we were just running out so much out of time. But I really like everybody wants to know, well, how's the quarterback position looking? How's the quarterback position looking? Because this is the team, they're going to be led, and Arkansas is going to go as far under Dan Enos as a quarterback can take them. And I really like KJ, and I saw how comfortable he was. And that was one of my questions during the pre-spring game was, how comfortable is KJ Jefferson going to look under center in an offense under a new offensive coordinator? How is he going to look? And I think he passed the test, even though it was kind of like it was more of situational work. But you can get things out of situational work that you probably can't in a regular spring game, because you're playing so vanilla.
Well, and you got also in the mind, the guy running at you can't touch you. You know what I'm saying? Just in that pressure of knowing I'm going to make this pass because that guy's just got to throw his arm out and he touches me. Or, you seen that run where he broke off that run and they flagged him and said he was down. There was a controversy over whether he was really down or not, but still yet. I mean, just knowing, and that's where you develop, though. You want to go out there and get real game time reps, but know that in that setting, I don't have to worry about nothing but stepping back and making my plays. Now, when summer camp gets here and we're playing these non-conference games and these early games, that's where the guys are going to be running at you wanting to knock your head off. So, I mean, I think we'll know more come summertime and come closer to the season. But, I mean, it's like 7-on-7 ball. How many teams, these high school teams, go win 7-on-7 state championships and then they go 3-7, or 4-6 or whatever when it comes to, regular season? You've got a guy coming at you 6'5", 320 running a 4.5 40, and he's not going to try to knock your clock off,
Right. And Arkansas, I don't remember if we mentioned it last week, but they ended up getting that Maryland transfer. I can't remember if it happened Monday or Tuesday of this week, or if it happened Saturday of last week. But Arkansas got the tank out of Maryland, 6'4", 320 pounds, Tank Booker, out of Maryland. He was a transfer up there for the Terrapins. Man, how big of an addition is that? Especially when you think about how we talked about it with Ethan, like how valuable defensive tackles are going to be as far as adding to defensive line depth. And that's a big guy to add to your defensive line. A lot of people were like, man, that's like John Ridgway. And he plays a little bit shorter than John Ridgway, but having monster guys that are big run stuffers, you're going to need that when you're playing a 4-down front in the SEC.
Yeah, and it's funny you said that. Ethan put out a tweet during the spring game. All right, you have Snacks, you have Tree, you have Rocket, you got Nudie, you got Bubba, you got Pooh, you got Tank, you got Day Day, and you got Fortnite. You got a lot of nicknames when it comes
to
the
cool names, and then you get to Cade Fortin and Fortnite.
I know. I like Snacks though. I had a friend of mine. We called him Day Day. His name was David. We called him Day Day. But yeah, it's funny how you get all these, and it's crazy. We had bumper pool. You had all these names and stuff. So it's really nice to see that we're still making headway when it comes to the nickname game. But it's really nice having Ethan on to really give us a perspective of what's going on. With the whole spring games and in the basketball and the football and baseball practices and the games.
Yeah, he's doing an awesome job there for Whole Hog, and I'm glad that Matt is allowing him to come on every week and do a good job breaking down stuff for us. We didn't talk about the running backs. I saw a Hogs Plus deal where they were talking to Darren McFadden, and he said the running backs, man, they look tenacious.
Yeah,
I love it. When you have the head hog in tow, and you've got a big time, I think they had Braylon Russell in for a visit. I can't remember what school he plays for, but he's somewhere in Central Arkansas. He was in Hot Springs, but I think he plays for like Bryan or somebody now. But Braylon Russell, big time 4-star running back. I think he's overall like a top 100 recruit in the country for the 2024 class. Having Darren in to kind of like showcase, hey, the GOAT's here. Right? And he's like, and then the way these guys play, tenacious, active, and running into the hole. And like Rocket, did you see the stiff arm that he gave somebody in the backfield? Like that was Darren McFadden-esque, and just guys running to the hole. AJ Green was just playing hard, churning away. Like I really think that going under center too is really going to impact the running game, because you're not taking so much time in the backfield in shotgun all the time trying to run the ball out of the shotgun. Now, zone reads is a different story, but I really liked how they ran the ball out from under center. It was a really cool change of pace.
And it's just, again, having somebody with that track speed, you get that guy Satania with some, and Tesla too. Getting guys that can be a deep threat. That that's going to be a key. You've seen how big of a difference one guy in Burks did for your offense. Could you imagine you have two dual threat guys who can really run down the field, and then your running game? I mean, that can get you 2 to 3 wins right there. Right. 2 games you could have lost. I mean, you pretty much become bowl eligible with a one-dimensional offense. I mean, you didn't have a deep threat. So you get a deep threat, and you become where you're a balanced offense. And especially, again, with a guy like Enos coming in, wanting to be there, not checked out, not looking for another job. And, of course, you're not going to have that locker room stuff. You're not going to have, guys, can I trust this guy calling these plays? Is he just trying to do this so he can get a nice payday? Is it something that – is this guy just looking for the next job, and what's he doing, going and interviewing and stuff, and not being a part of this team? So, and again, I know it's spring game, and the fact that it's going to be refreshing to see what this team does with a whole new scheme, a whole new, mindset when it comes to the offense and defensive side of the ball. And I know we've talked about the offensive lot, but you got new defensive coordinators coming in. You got new guys on defense that's, wanting to come in and make a name for themselves too. And we'll break down that, more that the season gets here. But I was telling them, the fact that we've been talking a lot about the offense. We ain't even broke down the defensive side of the ball, the defensive and what he's wanting to do for the team. I mean, it's just, but the thing you got to score points, and that's where you've seen a lot of change, but you've lost a lot. And when it comes down to it, we've lost a lot on the defense. We lost a lot of depth, and that's going to be the scary thing. We can see all this stuff, what we want from the running backs and the receivers and the quarterback and all that, but are we going to be able to stop the other team from scoring?
Yeah, I mean, that is a big question too, because you think about it, like I think Arkansas is going to be able to get pressure up the middle and the gaps, just because I saw the way Landon Jackson was coming off the end. It was really impressive. Kind of remind me of more of a Dietrich Wise. I remember when he played here, he was real twitchy and a guy that really liked to live in the opponent's backfield. I think you're going to see John Morgan and that Trajan Jeffcoat, both of those big time transfers out of Pitt and Missouri, respectively. Like those two schools usually churn out some pretty good defensive line talent, and to have those two guys here, and then you think about having a Torian Carter healthy, and you think about having a big time transfer in the Maryland guy Tank Booker. And then you think about the linebackers too. You lose Bumper Pool and you lose Drew Sanders, but you're bringing in Antonio Greer, that was a all AAC linebacker out of USF. But you also have Pooh Paul there. You have Jordan Crook. Jordan Crook had a half a sack. I know that's how Ethan was saying it earlier. He had a half sack. But those linebackers were bringing pressure every single play, it seemed like. So pressure is going to be there. It's going to be up to the defensive backs to be able to make plays and hold out on their own. I think there was a couple of times where they made plays throughout the scrimmage that were very impressive.
Yeah, and again, just a lot of things to look forward to when it comes to the football and, of course, the basketball, which – the whole transfer portal just keeps on. And with the new news that come out this week about the unlimited unofficials, but you can only take one per school. I mean, Jacob, before we get into, what Arkansas has done this week at the transfer portal, what's your take on the whole unlimited official visits? And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but like an official visit, the school pays for, correct? Is that all the school you take?
That's
so
right.
If these kids get unlimited, what's that going to do to all the people that are saying, hey, look, you're spending all this money on recruiting, trying to get kids in the transfer portal, trying to get kids out of high school. You're giving all these athletes unlimited official visits. Where's these schools going to start having to get this money from? It's insane that on top of paying them to get them there, you're going to have to pay them to stay.
Think about it this way, though, because you're already, you're going to be looking for the budget. Where's the money in the budget going to come from? Because you're already asking your boosters and all these fans to give money for all these NIL divisions, and you're thinking, man, where are we going to get all this money from? And now you're expanding. Yeah. Now you're expanding your reach as far as recruiting visits go on officials. Like that to me is insane, because like the SEC schools are going to be able to do it. The Big Ten schools are going to be able to do it. Outside of that, who's going to be able to do it?
But I
who's
think
going to be able to afford it? I don't know.
Good point though, because it's gonna, these people unlimited. It's going to make it to where some of these schools who thought they might not have a chance will now have a chance. It's going to – you can't just say, well, I'm going to go to my top 3 schools. Well, that's just something that just come to me is like, well, if you're only giving these kids top 3 schools, well, these 3 schools keep on getting all the recruits. Now you're doing unlimited. Well, maybe I want to take a little quick while I'm over at Oklahoma. What if I want to jump over to Oklahoma State? Or
what if I want to jump on a plane from Arkansas and go to Hawaii?
Yeah, you never know. And that always like, man, how have they not ever had a bunch of bomb teams when it comes to, I mean, you want to go play in Hawaii for 4 years? That always blew my mind how they've just never really, I mean, they had what was his name? Colt Brennan
Brennan. Yeah.
I mean, that 1 year they were really, really good at football, but that was one of the things that really kind of surprised me. You see all these coastal towns and stuff in these states and if
they just never took off.
Exactly. Oh,
it's crazy.
But a lot of,
but yeah, they. But anyways, before we go, I mean, you had a Khalif battle this week, and we talked about that Sunday. I was like, watch out last Sunday. Watch out for maybe some news on Monday or Tuesday of Khalif battle, and then I tweeted out some news about Tyler Perry visiting, and then I had to take it down because I was consulted, and I was like, okay. And then they didn't tell me why. And so then the very next day, they had Jeremiah Davenport come in, a guy that I don't even know if he visited. Like,
yeah,
that's the thing. Like, and he commits, and then Tyler Perry ends up coming and visiting Arkansas. And there's supposedly like some other big fish out there. You thought you were going to get Jesse Evers out of Syracuse. He trimmed his list down, ended up committing today to West Virginia. And then you have CC that's still in the portal out of Oklahoma State. Obviously, you have the number one recruit in the nation that everybody wants, Hunter Dickinson. I don't know if Arkansas has a chance for him or not. Maybe we'll find out because I think he's trimming down his list to like Georgetown, Maryland, and Kansas. And I'm thinking, Georgetown stinks, Maryland's mid, and Kansas, Arkansas just freaking beat in the NCAA tournament. Like, I think Arkansas might be in a better spot. I'm not saying watch out for him. I'm just saying, Hunter Dickinson's out there. I mean, maybe you can.
Well, I think somebody went on it. I think they'll
throw a bag at him.
David March, the Twitter guy, he got on a live chat and was basically pleading for Hunter to come to Arkansas. I mean, it was one of the funny things, but
yeah,
look, we're in a different age. We're in a different age of how we can connect to these recruits, and
Absolutely.
You never know. As crazy as those tweets are, if it's somebody like him who's willing to do something insane, look at Teeter, what he does. He's a love-hate guy. There's a lot of people who love him, a lot of people who hate him. But look what he's done for the students and the athletes and stuff, and
Absolutely.
How he's connected to the students. I mean, you can't do nothing but tip your hat to the guy. The same way, with the trolling and stuff. I mean, but all in all, we can talk about these guards and scores, but I'm just saying we desperately need a big, and you want to talk about making a splash with a big. Hunter Dickinson would be one of the biggest. I mean, he would be up there, and this is just potential. He could be up there with Portis and Gafford, just with Jalen Williams when it comes to the inside presence. I mean, that's a legit guy. What I said, you need a guy that can come inside and get you 10 to 12 to 15 points. What better way to have a guy like him? I mean, all conference,
right?
Probably all American type player that can come in and get you 15 to 20 inside and then be able to kick it up to your scores. I mean, that would be a huge land. We talk about the guards, but I'm telling you, if they land Dickinson, that's going to be a huge, huge underrated deal because we're talking about all the scores. I mean, and not enough about the impact that he could bring to Arkansas. And again, people are starting to notice that these transfer guys are coming in and getting to the league. They're coming in and getting developed. They're going to come to Arkansas if they really want to try to get to the league. And that would be a perfect fit for him because Arkansas needs a big. You're not just
Absolutely.
coming into the roster spot. You're coming in and he will start and he'll make a huge impact next year.
Yeah. Even if Arkansas doesn't get a Dickinson and they end up getting another guard and just saying, okay, we're done with Graham and Brazil and we bring back Mekhi Mitchell. Like they can, there's situations throughout the games that you can play 5 outs and just say, hey, shoot the 3, go attack the board and go again. Because on those long rebounds, I mean, it's basically a 50-50 ball. So, I mean, that's the kind of offensive philosophy that I really think Musselman wants to play with, is more of a 5-out positionless basketball, being able to have more lanes to drive and draw fouls. I think that fits Arkansas's philosophy a little bit more than having a big man. And I know that I know I'm going to get hated on for that take, because Arkansas's been beaten by the Sonogos, by the Paulo Bancheros, by the Baylor big men. But you think about it, you've also struggled scoring the ball a lot over the past 3 years.
Yeah.
And now you have a chance to have 5 guys that scored at least 10 points a game in their college career, and a couple that have averaged 17, 18, 19 points a game. So that's big additions there. And you have key returnees too. I think Arkansas is setting themselves up to say, hey, we're in this for the long run. I think right now Musselman is saying, we have staying power and we're going to stay here, and you're just going to have to stop me.
Yeah, that's big. That's why it would be huge to get another big, because you're talking about, even with the scores Arkansas's had, you've run into Baylor, you've run into Duke, you've run into Kansas, not Kansas, but you beat Gonzaga, you beat Kansas, but then you look at this year and you run into UConn. You're getting out physical. You're not getting out. You're getting outscored, but you're getting out physical. And that again, that would be even if it isn't, like you said, Dickinson, I think they just truly need another big, because it doesn't matter unless you've got 3 guys that can get you 15, 20 a game. Right. That's what it's going to take. You're going to have 3 guys that go 17 to 20 a game to alleviate, and maybe 4 if a guy goes cold. But you're going to have to have 3 15 to 20 point scores if you don't bring in another big. And that's going to come to bite you playing that rigorous schedule, playing in the SEC. And then when you come into where you're playing those Thursday, Saturday splits, or the Friday, Sunday splits, and then, yes, you get a week off, and then you're doing it Friday, Sunday split or Thursday, Sunday split, that's where it taxes you. And you're playing bigger and better competition and getting body. And that's what happens when you run out of gas.
Yeah. So, it's going to be an interesting week. We'll see. I don't think Musselman's done yet. I think he could get 2 to 3 more guys to transfer in. And just like the whole deal with Barry Dunning leaving after he looked like he was staying, like, this roster deal is fluid. It's ever changing. And that's where fans have to realize that we're not living in the days of the past. This is a whole different thing. You got to get used to it. I like it. I like it. It's for us that report about these things and recap these things. It's beautiful for us because we have plenty of content to go through.
Exactly.
But I can't think about. I keep forgetting how agonizing it is for fans that just follow it occasionally too. Like, man, Arkansas is losing everybody, but they're gaining everybody. Like all these guys, it's just an ever-ending cycle here, and I like it.
That's what the transfer portal brings you. It brings you new and exciting. It's almost like a mystery eggs every year. You're getting to open up and see what you have. You never know. But Jacob, you got anything else before we wrap this thing up?
We're good, man. Woo pig.
All right. Well, hey, that will do it for another episode of the Hog Talk Podcast. We'll catch you tomorrow night or Tuesday for the weekly women's sports report. And then we'll be back with you right here next Sunday for another episode of the Hog Talk Podcast.